Parents who are married tend to be far wealthier than parents who are not married. On the one hand, you could argue that that means that getting married makes you wealthy, and there is some truth to that. But I actually think that there's a bigger, more important narrative going on here, which is that wealthier people are more likely to be married. So stay tuned as we get into this topic. Before we do so, I want to send a shout to the sponsors of this video, More Education. More Education is an online tuition program for students in years 7 through to year 11. Their team of experienced tutors has helped hundreds of students in GCSE English and GCSE Maths with a pass rate of over 90%. And their rates are extremely affordable too, starting at just £11 per hour. So click the link in the video description to find out how More Education can help your child to fulfill their destiny. So let's get into this. First of all, let me back up my claim that parents who are married tend to be wealthier than parents who are not married. I'm going to look again at the Deaton review from the Institute of Fiscal Studies, which I've looked at in quite some detail in my last couple of videos to back up this claim. So first of all here, this is a figure from that Deaton review paper, and you see here it shows you the value of savings and investment by family type in 2019 to 2020. So the numbers on the y-axis, the left-hand side there, those represent the value of savings and investments. And you see there are multiple brackets there, ranging from the highest bracket, which is £20,000 or more. In other words, that family has £20,000 or more in savings and investments, or going all the way down to families who have no savings or investments whatsoever. On the x-axis at the bottom, the percentage of families who fall into those brackets. And then you have the bars. I love a bar. Who doesn't love a bar? You've got bars. There are blue bars. The blue bars are the lone parent families. The green bars are the cohabiting parents. That is, parents who have not yet who have not married. Maybe they will go on to be married, but they weren't at that point married, but they are still living together. And the yellow bar is the married parents. And all of the links for all of these sources will be in my Substack. So make sure you do sign up to the Substack, eliwananda.substack.com, and you'll get this in your inbox in due course. And also you can help to support the channel as well, help to support what I'm doing. But you can see the clear picture there. The blue lone parent, the vast majority of lone parent families either have savings and investments less than £1,500. That's about 53% of them have that amount. And then another 30% of them have no savings whatsoever. Similarly, actually, for the cohabiting parents, you're looking at about 45% of cohabiting parents had less than £1,500 in savings and investments. And then another, 16% of them had no savings whatsoever. So again, over half of those families have either no or very little savings and investments. And to be fair, a large chunk of the married parents as well have less than £1,500 or no savings. You're looking at about 30% of them, less than £1,500, and then about 13% of them had no savings at all. But you can see very clearly there, as you go up higher in the higher brackets, you see there that the percentage of lone and cohabiting parents shrinks smaller and smaller and smaller, whereas the married parents are represented much more in those higher brackets, particularly in the highest bracket, which is £20,000 or more of savings and investments. Around about 20% of married parents were at that level. Another table this time from that same study, table 9, and it shows you here, this table is called Mother's Characteristics According to Partnership Context at Birth. So were the mothers married on the left, cohabiting in the middle, non-partnered on the right, and then on the left-hand side there you've got different characteristics. I'll just pick out 3 or 4 of these. First of all, because we're talking about wealth, I'm going to look at the ones that focus on wealth. So qualification level, that's one of the best indicators as to what your level of wealth is going to be. And whereas 37.5% of married mothers had a degree, only 18% of cohabiting mothers did, and 8% of lone parent mothers did. And then what percentage of these mothers were in the bottom quintile of income? Only 21% of the married parents were, goes all the way up to 38% of the cohabiting mothers, and it goes all the way up to the vast majority, 81% of the single parent mothers were in the bottom quintile of income distribution. And finally, the bottom one there, housing tenure, 81% of the married mothers were owner-occupiers. That drops down to 54% of cohabiting mothers, and it goes down to only 12% of lone parent mothers were owner-occupiers. So that just that paints the picture for us. Married parents tend to be wealthier, have a higher income, higher level of education than our other parents, including cohabiting parents. But I want to contradict myself slightly in my previous videos. In my previous videos, I said that this shows that marriage is the best option for children and parents, and so forth. And that is partly true. I do, of course, believe that. I do believe that the benefits of marriage are not just to do with wealth. Actually, the benefits of marriage are to do with the solidity of the relationship, the union between the two parents, the cooperation, the networks, the social capital, and all that you can kind of build when you're married. So I definitely do think that marriage helps with the creation of wealth, and of course most importantly the transfer of wealth generationally. Absolutely, no doubt about that in my mind. However, I think what we're seeing here, when we're looking at the fact that married parents tend to be wealthier than non-married parents, including cohabiting parents, what we're seeing here is actually to do with the type of people who get married. I think it's more the case that the wealthier people who are wealthier, the more wealthy you are, the much more likely you are to become married. This is from the Marriage Foundation, and it's looking at data from the Family Resources Survey dataset, which ran from 1994-95 up to 2012-2013. So around about 20 years there or thereabouts. And look at the table. You can see, hopefully you can see it very clearly. So it's the mothers with children under 5 who are married by income. The percentage on the left-hand side there, that's the percentage of mothers who were married, who had children under 5. And then on the bottom there, you've got the years. Straightforward. So you can see this is trend. It's showing us a trend. One of the best things that you can do when you're talking about data is to look at different time frames. Because if you can look at one snapshot in time, and yeah, you'll learn a lot about that, but you really want to, where you can see years of data, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years of data or whatever, that's where you're on really, really solid ground, particularly if the data is consistently collected each time and uses the same criteria. Because as you can see, there's changes. There are changes happening over time. All right. So here we can see there are changes happening over time. If this was just the percentage of mothers who had children under 5 who were married, if there was just one bar, then you would see that bar going down, and that'll be it. But thankfully here, this table and the data that it represents breaks down the percentages into the income brackets. So you've got the richest income bracket, the green at the top. Then the middle income brackets, the yellow, and then the poorest income bracket is the orange. And you can see very obviously there, can't you, that the rates, all of those bars have kind of declined roughly. Well, most of them have declined over that 1994 to 2012 period. However, the rate of decline is sharper amongst some groups than others. So interestingly, amongst the middle income mothers, whereas around about 80% of those mothers were married in 1994. This is the middle income mothers with children under 5. That had dropped quite drastically down to about 60%, or maybe a little bit less than 60% of them in 2012. What's very interesting is that if you look at the poorest mothers, 25% of them with children under 5 were married in 1994. 25% of them with children under 5 were married in 2012. So basically no real change there. And also at the very, very top there, you see that the rates of decline are shallower amongst the richest. In 1994, almost all of them, around about 90%, 90-something% of the richest mothers with children under 5 were married in 1994. That had dropped, but only down to about 87%, 80-something percent, 83, 84% maybe thereabouts were of mothers with children under 5 in the richest income bracket were married. What is this telling me first and foremost? This is telling me that, yes, rates of marriage overall have been dropping quite drastically. This data only covers 1990s to the mid-teens, if you like, 2012. So it's not a massive data set, but it's pretty, 20 years is pretty big. I would imagine if you look even further back to the 1940s, 30s, whatever, and if you brought it right up to date, you would see the trend. The overall trend there is less people are getting married. However, the rates of this decline are not the same across the different wealth brackets. Amongst the richer mothers, the richer families, the richer parents, still the vast majority of them are married. The vast majority of them get married. Whereas when you look at particularly the middle class parents, there's been a precipitous decline. Far less of them are married than used to be the case. What's basically happening is that marriage is becoming the preserve of the wealthy. I think the reason, this is something I'm going to have to unpack in future videos, but just to give you a couple of little, a little bit of speculation to begin with, I think the reason for that is that for the wealthy, marriage is an absolutely critical part of their wealth creation, wealth generation, and wealth transfer. They are, one thing you need to understand about the really wealthy, people who are really wealthy, the wealthier you get, basically, the more organized you become, because you have more to play with. You have more that you want to organize. You've got more resources, you've got more assets, you've got more capital of various kinds, social capital, you've got more. And so you are going to become more organized. For example, you can look at policy, political policy here in the UK. Something like housing, mortgages, housing and stuff like that. Interest rates have been so low for so long here in this country, partly because the government doesn't want homeowners to be shafted by, spiraling interest rates. Spiraling interest rates will be good because it will bring the house prices down. It will take the steam out of the housing bubble, which has been going on for decades now. And that will be good for the poorer. The people who are on the lower incomes, that will be great for them because they'll be able to being able to afford to buy. However, that will be pretty terrible for people like me, homeowners and really wealthy landowners and homeowners, because it will mean that many will be faced with the difficulty of maybe having to sell their home, being caught in negative equity, all that sort of stuff. And homeowners are very, very politically organized. If you do anything to trouble homeowners, they will get their friends in the think tanks and they will be, they'll lobby Parliament, they'll lobby their MPs, they'll NGOs will get involved, the pressure groups, all these like think tanks, what are they called? Institute for Economic Affairs and the Taxpayers Alliance, all these front organisations really. These are the people who gave us your Kemi Badenochs and Liz Trusses and Rishi Sunaks and whatnot. The upper middle classes are extremely well organised and they make sure that the political agenda, the policy agenda is such that anything that potentially might trouble their wealth just won't see the light of day. This is the reality. The reality is, I think, that the upper middle classes and the very wealthy use marriage as part of their overall strategy. One of their overall strategies to make sure that their interests are protected. The working classes in Britain used to be very, very well organised through the unions. I'm old enough to just about remember the miners' strike in the 1980s. I remember watching it on TV. I didn't really understand what was going on, but I just remember Arthur Scargill and Margaret Thatcher. They seemed to be the antagonists, and there was people in the streets for some reason. What I understand now, that battle in the 1980s, Margaret Thatcher was doing the wealthy, the super rich, a massive favour by crushing the unions. That was deliberately aimed at destroying the power and the wealth of the big mining unions, transport unions, and all that sort of stuff. Such that nowadays hardly anybody even bothers to join a union. The working classes in this country have been successfully programmed to think that the reason why everyone's getting a bit poorer, everyone's getting poorer and life is more precarious, cost of living and stuff, the reason for that is because of people like me. This is what they're being told. They're being told that it's because of Muslims, it's because of immigrants, it's because of asylum seekers, refugees. That's what they're being told. Successfully sold this narrative such that their sense of class consciousness is completely vanished for the vast majority of working class people. And that means that they can't see the wood for the trees. They can't see the reality of what's happening. They can't see where all the wealth is actually going in the country. It's all being sucked up by the super wealthy, the upper middle classes. But my political rant kind of over with there. What I'm going to talk about in a future video is I want to talk about that. I want to talk more about, well, why is it? Why are we getting less wealthy? Why is life getting so much harder? Why can't we afford our rents? Why can't we afford to buy houses? And most people can't afford to buy houses. The country is turning into much more of an inheritocracy than it used to be. Britain has been an inheritocracy for centuries. It's part of the class system here. You know, it's not, you are born into the position you're going to die in this country on the whole. Yes, many people over the last several decades have been kind of co-opted because, you know, the right to buy in the 80s and, you know, home ownership and all that sort of stuff. That co-opted loads of people to start voting in the interests. They thought it was in their interest, and it was temporarily, but really and truly it was an interest of the super rich. But we need to understand that. We need to understand those dynamics, because particularly also from a black perspective here in Britain, we're not really going to be able to understand why we act in the way that we do. Yes, I talk all about the things that we can and should be doing differently. But we also have to understand the context that we're in, and we have to understand the context, our class position, which is mainly a working class position here, or maybe lower middle class position. Our class position is directly shaped by these macroeconomic issues. These big economic issues is what I'm talking about. And it's really incumbent upon us to make sure that we don't fall into the trap, or that most people are falling into now, where it's just the bloody immigrants, it's just the gays, it's the trans, because we don't understand economics. We don't understand how the political systems work and all that sort of stuff. So we can't even understand, I mean, tariffs. How many people in America even understand what tariffs are and how they work? But I will end by saying that yes, the overall reason why married parents tend to be wealthier than non-married parents is because a much higher proportion of the married parents are wealthier people than used to be the case. Middle class and working class people are not getting married these days to anywhere near the level that they used to be married. The majority of parents are not getting married. And for me, while I've been banging on about the bigger economic picture and, you know, all this sort of stuff, it's on us as black people, as anybody, white people, Asian, South Asian, whatever you might be, whatever your hue, your creed, your color, whatever. It's up to us we have control over some things in our lives. We have some control over some things in our lives. And this is something I got from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you focus and maximize on those things that you have control over, what you'll find is that the sphere of those things that you have control over starts to get bigger. Because when you use what you have effectively, new opportunities come about. So it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we are, doing everything that we can to build those relationships with one another, to build those couples, to choose your partner very, very wisely. The most important decision you're ever going to make in your life, if you're planning on becoming a parent, is who you partner with. Because marriage is hard. Trust me, marriage is a bloody hard work, often. And if you've decided to hook up with somebody or have a child with someone who you've not vetted, you've not done the inner work in yourself, they've not done the inner work in themselves, the marriage is going to fall apart. Your relationship is going to fall apart. Your children is not going to have both their parents around, and that's going to lead to loads of problems later on in life. Those are some of the decisions that we need to be making to make sure that we can, as best as we can, position ourselves individually, as couples, as families, and as communities to engage with this political system that I'm talking about, engage with this economic system, to maneuver through it as best as we can. And ultimately, why not? Why not organize to change the political system, to change the economic system that we have, radically change it, transform it, such that it will serve the interests of the majority rather than what has always been the case, serving the interests of a very, very small minority. All right? So, thank you for watching. I started talking about marriage, and then eventually I started banging on and on about, revolution and stuff. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. My name's Ellie. Make sure you check out the Substack, which is elliewananda.com. And if you haven't already watched my video about how divorce rates are reducing, then check that out right here. The video's here. I'm sure you enjoy it. And then also YouTube will suggest a video here that you might enjoy also. All right? Take care of yourself. I'll speak to you soon. Peace.